This is Ankur. I head marketing and placements at Masai School, and it's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be joined by and hosting Anirban. Thanks for taking the time, Anirban. Thanks for being here. I think we'll have a good mix of folks coming in from a wide variety of backgrounds. As you know, the Masai student base itself comes from a very diverse background, and today we are also joined by a lot of interested folks from, I think, colleges who are aspiring techies, aspiring developers, and others who actually look for that from a variety of different backgrounds. So. Anirban, quick background for you from my side, and then I'm gonna put you on the spot to talk about it. I think you've taken a very interesting path to where you are. You went to a very prestigious college, Delhi College of Engineering, as it was called erstwhile. Now I think Delhi Technological University.
Yes.
Uh, and you did your electrical engineering there. Started your career in a service-based company,
Yeah.
Infosys, if I'm not wrong, and that is something which would be counter to most intelligence today, even for our students. The thing of, oh, I've joined a service-based company, now my career is in a question mark, if not over already. To then being in product companies, being the co-founder and CTO of at least two different companies that I know of. So very interesting career path. Would you want to expand a little and talk to us about it?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Ankur. Thanks, Masai, for having me. So, like you said, I think getting into an engineering college back in the day was part and parcel of the general course of the things. And I think, even Pratik was mentioning, how IITs are kind of looked up as the holy grail of education, higher education. Uh, at my time, it was even very smaller. We just had, I think, I don't know, eight IITs. Right now, I don't know how many there are. But I think my general knowledge about IITs is probably kind of just expanded upon by looking at resumes. कि अरे यहाँ पे भी IIT. So, I got out of DC. I again went through the usual track. Back in the day, it was like you had a pretty templatized life, which is you do engineering when you try for MBA. Thankfully, I only managed to crack that until the general discussion interview पे, because उसके बाद everybody figured out कि इसको कुछ समझ नहीं आता है MBA का, which would probably in hindsight be a blessing in disguise. Uh, and I got into Infosys because at that time that was Infosys, TCS. These were the companies which were considered as tech companies. I still believe they are tech companies. It's just that they solve tech in a separate or different kind of perspective. Uh, and I think even though right now also there is this general perception of how they work and how it might be detrimental to your career, at least I do give a lot of credit to getting a hang of how to work in a company and what it takes to write code in a structured manner in Infosys. And I also think the current generation knows a lot to what the likes of Infosys, thesis have done. Because the impact that they had on society, right, in terms of before that, think about it, right, manufacturing jobs. आप
Absolutely.
या तो आईटीसी या कहीं पे आप अपनी नौकरी ढूंढोगे, I mean, and find your way through all that, or you'll go to a power. I would have worked at a power station.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I mean, I think that they have done a tremendous job from 1990s to 2008, 2005, right? After that, which is also a testament to the fact that because they were able to lift the social level of a general middle class,
Mhm.
that people like me could actually start taking risks. And I think we just say the new generation that I encounter who at 21, 22 are thinking of startups, I think it also kind of shows a lot because whatever we thought as tech, we had to redefine in terms of opportunities, right? Because we think of them as tech companies. The only problem with the services companies is that you do not control your creativity. You're building software that others need, and you're constantly shifting. So you don't have a proper, what you would say, focused growth. Like, if you want to be good at backend, you need kind of focus on being good at backend. On the latest technologies, you can't do that because you're working for some Fortune 500 company who has already invested like 20 years of technology,
Right.
and you can't redefine that.
Right.
Which is also a testament to the fact why startups are interesting because it's not just IITs. I mean, sorry, it's not just about the emphasis and all that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Even now, what we see as a good thing is that people don't want to work for big companies. Right? There are plenty of good big companies now. You've
Mm-hmm.
got Walmart Labs. I mean, if they are competing on salaries, which is pretty much the case, but now with the startups having enough funding, they're able to compete on salaries also. So it's
True.
mostly about the kind of exposure that they get in doing the kind of work that they can. So that's really good. So yeah, started with emphasis, stayed there for 2.5 years, realized it was becoming very monotonous. Incidentally, I wanted to work at Yahoo and AOL, and both of the companies don't exist anymore. But I got rejected because I didn't have a computer science background, and the feedback was that I don't come from a product-based company.
Oh, all
And I
right.
had no idea what a product-based company is. Because my definition of tech is tech, right? I mean, you write code and you get on with life.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first sort of rude shock. You like, there is services and there is product. Oh my God, you get the shit out. And uske baad, then basically, found my way through startups because 2007 when uh, it was like startups are desperate enough to kind of give you any opportunity and they can look past your background and just evaluate on you on the basis of what you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has still been the culture at startups, and that is really good. That I can be a witness to the fact that even in 15, 20 years, startups are going to hire you on the merit of what you bring to the table. And when I encountered Masai, thanks to you, about a year and a half back, um, I don't recall looking at a single resume. I only looked at the GitHub profiles,
Yeah.
and I told you, like, you guys are doing the right thing by making them understand how GitHub is more important than what they put into a PDF.
Absolutely.
And but I think that's where it all started happening. And I was never initially like, ki koi bada idea and all that. I wanted to be just, I love building things. Get stuck at that. And uske baad it sort of came to a point in 2015 when we were trying to raise funding for the UrbanPiper, initial idea. And that was another second rude shock of my life when I look back. कि उस टाइम पे ये कहा गया था कि आप B2C नहीं हो, आप B2B हो. And
Right.
B2C is cool and B2B is why don't you build something B2C?
Right.
And these are very interesting things because you are always believing that you're doing the right thing, and it's just that uh, at some point in your career you will always have to combat this sense of a social perception that what all you're doing, is it valuable? I mean, that whole social validation, if it comes from your family, your friends, whether your salary, whether your higher education. So these validations in life are what I think derail a lot of the aspirations of people.
Right.
And I don't want to be preachy about it, but I think like if you just stick to it, then India is at that stage where it goes. I mean, another thing that I would want to share is like right now I'm 39 years old, and I remember I was always very distraught about कि मेरे एक साल बर्बाद हो रहे हैं. I mean, this whole overarching thing कि मेरी जिंदगी कहाँ जा रही है, all that thing कि like I can't waste time, and I think that's a little bit of a mess. Um, I am at 39, and I think like I'm still like having exposure to do so many things, and I also see a lot of guys who work with us who have dropped years, but they are 28, 27. मतलब फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. At the end, they are enjoying their work. So that's the whole thing. I mean, don't get caught up with social perceptions and don't get caught up with how fast you have to move your life. And after that was, I think like uh, the whole perception around B2B changed around 2000. 1980, when there were a slew of good B2B companies which came out. You have UserPay, then you have ChargeBee, Freshdesk,
Right.
Freshworks.
Right.
They really turned things around. And so again, it's just it's market sentiment. And I mean, I remember when ISA as a concept came out also, right? Income shared agreements and all that. And there was like, okay, ye kya hai and all that. And now I think it's suddenly turned the corner and, Masai is at the forefront of it. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, just stick at it and keep building and, enjoy. So yeah,
Thanks for pointing out, like, that's a very interesting arc. Probably an episode of what if there were no service-based companies and what would the career in material science or manufacturing might have been.
yeah.
Definitely not for today, but an interesting thought to have. I do agree. I think like a lot of the early startups, the wave in India is enabled by what came right before that, and it's really good to see that validation. And so why start UrbanPiper? And like at that time, I think 2016, if I'm not mistaken, uh,
Yeah.
is when you started off. So a like so sort of, if you can help everybody understand what is it about, because even though I've sort of hinted, but people may not necessarily get it. And then of course, why did you choose that?
So, one other good thing, by the way, of working at services company is that वो हमेशा ना कम पैसे देते हैं. So opportunity cost कभी होता नहीं है. So that's one good thing also about services. So a lot of my peers who got into these like MBAs and fancy jobs at like banks, who are
Mm-hmm.
still doing those fancy jobs, but they're doing some job now for me, as I see it. But we don't have any golden handcuffs. I think that's one beauty of services now. Like, so salaries are in a way golden handcuffs. How much you actually leverage your life against what reality is. Service your salary plays a major role in that, right? कि like तो मेरी 50 लाख की सैलरी है तो एक गाड़ी ले ली दो घर ले ली a flat ले लिया and then you're screwed. So again, I never had money, so I never leveraged my. I still ride around in a bicycle, and so I kind of enjoy that I am not held at stake. So we
Great pers-
started in, huh?
I'm saying that's a great perspective.
Yeah, yeah, nothing to lose.
Right, absolutely.
And so the Urban Piper initial thing was that we wanted to build something which was like, so I don't know how many here would in the audience would be from that generation of 2015. I mean, I think you guys would almost be all be in your colleges or something, but 2015, 16 was this mega era of food tech. Swiggy and Zomato was small. Tiny Owl was this big thing around. You had like I think 14 or 16 food delivery apps, and everyone in the world wanted to be a food delivery or food tech. And their definition of food tech could be as loosely as like लोग मुझे ऑर्डर कर लिया अबे तो पहले भी तो फोन पे ऑर्डर ही हो रहा था वो कहते हैं हाँ हाँ बस एक डैशबोर्ड दिखा दो कि मेरे कितने फोन आ रहे हैं दैट्स फूड टेक. So I think like where we started was we saw that a lot of folks wanting to get into food tech, especially the restaurants, and they had no means to kind of establish their own online web front or web store. So, and I had been a big fan of Shopify for a long time,
Mhm.
and I used to think कि Shopify क्यों नहीं use कर लेते हैं लोग क्योंकि इतना आसान है and all that. And then
Right.
I started realizing that there are some major gaps in Shopify because of which a restaurant can't use it. And that gave us the idea that okay, let's build this kind of a platform where it's sort of similar to Shopify and restaurants can come and just create their website. That's how it started. And 2018 तक ऐसा हो गया था कि the market had consolidated around Swiggy and Zomato in the online consumer world. And we were probably we and there was another company called LimeTrade who were the only two people who were providing this kind of a solution of a Shopify kind of an experience. LimeTrade was probably 5-6 times bigger than us, and they were a big brand. And there was a feature request which I never wanted to make, which was कि a lot of merchants were saying कि तुम मेरा online ordering संभाल लेते हो, why can't you manage my Swiggy Zomato orders also? यार छोटा सा ही तो है channel है और डाल दो. And I used to kind of always go into this philosophical trip, which is like you should be caring about your own brand. Why do you want to cannibalize your sales by making it easier to do business on Swiggy and Zomato. So I was really kind of consumed by the idea that restaurants should have their own foothold, which seems prophetic right now because they are up in arms against Swiggy and Zomato now.
Yeah, yeah, very
But
interesting.
so this is another interesting thing, right? I mean, basically, like, as a, I always used to feel that, founders have to be at the forefront of making right decisions. Um, in the initial phase, I was very much against making this feature.
Hmm.
And it was thanks to one of the co-founders, Manav, who basically persisted on it. एंड वो लगा रहा मैंने कहा तुम एक काम करो जो था ना skunk work टाइप वो वहाँ कोने में बैठ के दो जने बैठ के फीचर बना लेते हैं and they made the feature and before you know it in 2019 end we basically became we had the back end or rather what you would call the solution was built. So the solution is similar to what you would say is that like you rightly said that if you're ordering on any of these online ordering platforms, chances are very high it's flowing through us. So basically Swiggy and Zomato have not really built anything that sits between their consumer apps and the restaurants. They have built their own dashboards which the merchants can use, but then it becomes very hard for merchants to kind of manage their operational workflows on multiple dashboards. So we basically solved that. So we give a unified layer, we bring everything to one single dashboard, we bring it to their point of sale. So that's really good for them. And Dhire Dhire, I mean, from 2019 when we started, we were doing about 30,000 orders a day, and right now we are doing 500,000 orders a day. And it just scaled, and before I knew it, Hamara, our own Shopify wala product took a back seat, and this became our all in what do you would say all empowering kind of thing to build on. Interestingly, the same problem exists in every geography where there's online order. So there is a very good saying that I saw, when I was reading this book about the gold rush in California back in the 19th century, that,
Hmm.
the origin story of Levi Strauss is basically they built tools or rather the genes that I mean, the birth of genes is that they didn't have clothes that could survive a mine. Everybody's going for the gold rush, but किसी के पास कपड़े नहीं थे जो gold rush में टिक सकते थे. So
Right.
the story of UrbanPiper is sort of similar. Like when you see a gold rush happening, instead of jumping into the gold rush, build the tools which will enable the gold rush. And you know, similar to us is like say there's another company called Postman, right? I mean, so
Hmm.
Postman करी क्या रहा है? I mean, they're building the tools. कि like यार हमें कुछ नहीं करना, तुम्हें APIs बनाना. The world is going to get consumed by APIs. We'll make good
Right.
editors which can be consumed. So the thing is that we basically built those tools, and then before we knew it, uh, there was immense scale. And the scale part also is very interesting, and this is where I think I'm a big proponent of learning by doing things and making mistakes, which is the my background has nothing, absolutely nothing that indicates that I can handle scale or we could build a solution that deals with scale. Um, just to give you an idea, right now we're doing about 10 million API calls, every day, and
Wow.
I come from electrical engineering. I've built websites and all that. I've set up servers and all those. But everything has been like 5,000 user. My best day would be like even though 5,000 API requests are there.
Wow.
And so, of course, when the whole solution started scaling for Swiggy and Zomato, it started breaking left, right, and center. And it is in these moments where you have to kind of understand whether I think I took that as a learning thing. I mean, I remember 6 months of my life was like pretty much I just kept looking at the first thing I did was like, okay, so this is one thing that I learned, and this is as engineers, I would say, like, a lot of engineers that I come across, they are very invested in like कि मेरे को language में क्या करना है, मेरे को DA से करना है, मेरे को algorithm वो सब करना है. But there is another part to it. तुम जो काम कर रहे हो वो चल भी रहा है नहीं. This is so important. I see that there are so good developers who do not know the inside out of dev tools in Chrome. There are amazing developers, but they do not know about things. One thing about Sentry or any of these things, जहाँ पे आप real time bugs track करते हो.
Right.
They're amazing developers, but they can't profile a software to save their life. So I think one of the things that I first did was that I had a very good grasp of building dashboards to understand the performance of an infrastructure. And I created these elaborate dashboards which would tell me. So my passion became कि यहाँ सब कुछ फटने वाला है, बट जो भी फटे मुझे 5 मिनट पहले बता दो कि तुम फटने वाले हो. That was my motto, and that's how I scaled the system. And I think whatever I built in that time for monitoring and indicating that things can go sideways
Hmm.
still holds true. It still is our basis, but it doesn't blow up now. And you know, I googled my way through it. I mean, I didn't know who to ask. I'm good friends with the folks at say Razorpay. बट उस टाइम
Hmm.
पे रेजर पे के भी इतने सारे एपीआई रिक्वेस्ट नहीं होते थे सो दे विल बी स्मॉल इनपुट्स कि ये कर लो वो कर लो बट it's mostly by finding your way through it. And I think we were able to scale it based on uh, you know when you break something, it's like you have to be obsessive about the क्या break करना है, and you have to like I said, like those tools that help you monitor your infrastructure is incredibly important. And that's still a very core tenet at UrbanPiper key. Just remember tech can break, but you can't make the same mistake twice. So I think that holds up really well.
Wow, that's really interesting. Also, incidentally, a challenge I myself am going through as well. As we are scaling here, like you said, exactly something which I discuss with Pratik every now and then. Nothing in my background will suggest that I can do it, but try and keep the fundamentals in place is something uh, which we've kept in mind, and this just reinforces it beautifully.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and for those of you who are attending uninitiated, Anirban and team have just announced their Series B,
Mm.
backed by a bunch of investors, including the two rivals, Swiggy and Zomato. Both of these guys coming in together, which was interesting. So, big congratulations to you, Anirban, once again
Yeah.
on doing that. And what does that mean? Like, what is next? Because you've already been touching upon scale. So, where do you go from here, and what are the next challenges?
So I think in hindsight, I can at least say Swiggy Zomato ko Lana was like a very but obvious thing. It came a little late in our mind, but we're solving such a big problem for them.
Right,
It was pretty much going to them and saying like, देखो हम खत्म हो जाएंगे तो तुम्हारा क्या होगा?
right,
So, so once you know that you've solved a problem for the someone to this extent and quietly, I think it is also a testament that they believe in it. And let me also say that interestingly, as a product market, काफी बार ये question आता है कि, when did you figure out when was your product market fit? A lot of companies say that I released my app and I got this hockey stick growth in users. These are all good stories. I think like I remember when we had our when I was posed with this question back in the day, like what made you believe that you guys are solving a big problem? So in 2020 December peak COVID times, I remember I would have been talking to you also. I mean, everyone was just trying to survive through
right,
the apocalyptic setting. 31st came along, 31st December, and people couldn't go anywhere in the world. I mean,
right.
so India में भी क्या जाएंगे? So Swiggy Zomato were expecting कि like बहुत ज़्यादा order आएंगे, and our entire infrastructure went down from 7:30 to 9:40 on 31st December.
I remember
Uh,
that conversation. Yes.
we took down all ordering across India. I in hindsight, it is good that वो COVID time था तो कोई हमारे ऑफिस को आके तोड़ नहीं पाया, but things were like that. But I truly got the power of what we were delivering as a value was that after 2 months, I did an audit of all the orders, all the merchants that we had, and we had zero churn. And that's when I realized, yeah, that means there's product market fit. So with that belief, when we went back and I think like when we approached Zomato and Swiggy, I think it was almost as if like they were like panic me. So that was good. So with this validation that we have from Swiggy and Zomato, uh, Interestingly, we also had validate. I mean, there were interest from also some other entities who run the Delivery Hero and Deliveroo, which are international because we are going into UK and Europe, and we are also in Middle East where the problem is very big. Um, so what we want to do is that firstly, we want to go outside and establish ourselves properly as an international SaaS company, something that Freshworks has already done. We are trying to go on that path, and similarly kind of. And another difference for us is like, a lot of the B2B SaaS companies are truly SaaS. So truly SaaS is that they don't have any offline expectations. Like, they are dealing with online sales, their entire sales process is online, people are engaging with them online. For us, it is like restaurants at the end of the day, and restaurants are very, very offline. And in fact, their adoption of tech has been fairly limited. It's only here with the whole online ordering thing coming into existence. It's almost like, they've been, yanked into being tech savvy. So we want to kind of go into these geographies, uh, figure out how to do it. We've screwed it up already twice, and I'll be very happy to say we screwed it up primarily because we made mistake, very very fundamental mistakes. कि like कैसे बेचना होता है, what is inside sales, कहाँ पे so inside all these concepts like कि हाँ remotely बेच सकते हो या नहीं. One good thing though, from a tech standpoint, is the tech holds is a great equalizer. It doesn't change. मैं अभी भी बेडरूम पे बैठ के ही अपना tech लिख सकता हूँ. It will work in Europe and everywhere.
Right.
But the challenges on sales and operations are extremely high that we have to figure out. And we've done a good job with figuring it out in Series A. Series B, it's about scaling that learning. Series B also is about this is the first time. So this is a very interesting thing also. I mean, for any scaling startup, one of the things that I now deeply think about is we started with like say 10, 15 folks. They are the core people that start the company. It's very interesting to understand that when you are 5 years down the road and you've grown so much, how do those individuals scale themselves? So it's not just company scaling, it's individual scaling. The guy who joined us as say from a college where he had 1 year back, he's now heading the entire operations function. So he scaled himself, but there have been individuals who have found scaling individually a big challenge. And this is something that I would actually, when I also kind of look back on my early days and I see myself now, I think, Shurumeto, you should, have a very healthy source of reading. When I was very deeply involved in engineering, I was big time into Hacker News and Reddit programming and all those kind of things. And very, very heavy. People I ask them this question, how are you learning?
Right.
And if they say कि मैं Stack Overflow से सीखता हूँ, यार तुम कुछ नहीं सीखते Stack Overflow से, तुम चेपना सीखते हो Stack Overflow से. That's what you learn. Uh, and even now, when I'm at the stage where the role that I have, I am out of answers for a lot of scenarios I face, and I reach out to other startups. And this whole ability to reach out and not feel कि oh, I'm not going to reach out to someone else, I think this is still very prevalent in the Indian society. Like we feel that asking for help is, I don't know, problem. This is something that as on an individual basis we shouldn't do. So we want to kind of scale outside India. There is also some interesting things that we want to build in the restaurant ecosystem. One interesting thing that we are doing is so the rest, like I said, restaurant industry is sort of discovering technology, and it's in a very similar state to how startups emerged in the initial days. When AWS came in, right?
Mhm.
Your use of AWS is primarily that we would go for servers, right? Free में credit लेके servers बनाओगे, and then if you are lucky enough and you survive and you scale, then तुम EC2 से तुम RDS पे जाओगे, EC2 से SQS पे, you kind of this is like an ecosystem, and you keep on cherry picking your way through it as it suits your business. So one of the things we want to do is sort of create a AWS kind of ecosystem for restaurants where they can start with the smallest expectation, which is that, say a point of sale system or, their online ordering system. And then they can go to much, much more complex things, which are like, building having their, supply side managed, having their inventory managed, having their workforce managed, warehouse managed. तो ये सारे चीजें एक एक करके बनाने हैं हमारे को. But yeah, I mean, that's our perspective right now, but we are still very early in that, but we'll hopefully get there soon.
Yeah, interesting. I think there's so much to sort of pick up. Like I'm trying to think which threads to pick because there's so many. But considering young individuals and aspiring professionals here, I cannot but highlight the fact of like asking for help. Personally, I can tell you that at one point I have chosen to fail rather than ask for help. So I can echo that sentiment. It was such a hard thing, culturally, like you said, in India, that's, I think, a thing. The fear of being judged is very high. The fear that my idea or my thoughts will be stolen is very high. And then there are general inhibitions in asking for
Yeah.
help.
ये
And
सामने वाले को समझ आएगा कि मैं बेवकूफ हूँ. That's also मुझे कम आता है.
correct. So yeah, but I think like from both your experience or mine, I would really recommend for all the young professionals, please talk to others. You would be surprised by how many people are willing to help. Like Anirban himself is saying, Razor Pay say help le liya even in the early days. They have no reason to, logically speaking, but that's not how communities work, and people are really willing. So yeah, that's one of the things which I definitely wanted to highlight. But coming back to scale, and that's an interesting challenge that you're solving because, like you said, it's not just pure tech play, so to speak. You're dealing with people who are sort of at the tail end of picking up technologies, being forced to do it rather than being looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and this is actually a two-part question because something I've noticed with you, you're never in a hurry, and that's a thing around today's day and age. Everybody is in a rush to get somewhere in life or to achieve the results, be done with it. Hustle culture has gone to a point where, like the
Right.
biggest dreams most people will have is retire by 40, now retire by 30 also, get to the top very quickly, make head of engineering very quickly, and everything is in a rush. And therefore that's the two-part thing, because one is today's day and age, like if you look at it in a startup context where there are unicorns being made in 1 year and 2 years, and you've taken your own sweet time, almost 6 years, to get to your series B. So how do you keep patient? How do you stay true to your purpose when so much is happening around you? And I'm sure, again, you this is not the first round of funding you've picked up, so you would have had some pressure from your existing investors. There would have been a lot of drive from their side as well, do this, do that. That's one. And the second is, you mentioned about like failures, and you've been able to laugh about it. But for most people it becomes a matter of shame, right? Acha ek fail ho gaya to band kar do, because already we are in a rush, we want to get there quickly, and if we've got a detour, maybe we are off the track only, so take a different direction. So those are two sort of connected things. Like how do you do it at your own end? How do you manage the team? Because I also know so many Masai graduates working with you. All of those guys are young professionals. I'm sure there are many other young folks in your team. So one is being that yourself, and then a second is making sure that your team can actually align with that and still keep building. Because I think in that, maybe our audience can take away some nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah. So the I think the most defining aspect of anything you do in any sphere is you need to enjoy it. Okay? I mean, जो पर्सपेक्टिव हम लूज कर जाते हैं ना, वो ये है कि हमारी जिंदगी के 8 से 10 या 12 घंटे हम काम करते हैं, ठीक है. And we keep on thinking about work-life balance, which is fine. I mean, I actually am a big proponent of the work-life balance, but when you're in a startup and you're growing, or you're in a scaling startup also, you know, it's more about work-life integration rather than work-life balance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is probably that if you try to kind of compartmentalize these two parts of your life, it's just going to be a very big struggle. Instead of that, you take the work part of it and how do you adapt it to include your also life part of it. Like say basically like, okay, if you are thinking that you want to take breaks in chunks, and instead of thinking like मैं 8 घंटे ही काम करूंगा और बाद में काम नहीं करूंगा, because it becomes hard, right? I mean, You'll go home and then something will come up. You get into a meeting. You'll have to kind of manage that. So instead of kind of trying to fight that sensation, feeling mera life शुरू हो गया and work शुरू हो गया, it's more about like how do you kind of work, accommodate each aspect in the other side. Just to give you an idea, like, in the last 1 month, my wife is not here. She's outside, and I'm kind of going up and down, bringing my kid from school and back to, back from school. So I just had to plan it out. I mean, so it's not like I think, oh shit, मेरे office के time पे मेरे को बच्चे को drop करना है और लाना है. It's about like this is life, and I'm also doing work, which is also life, a big part of mine. And I'm not going to fight it, saying that okay, ये work time में मुझे काम नहीं, घर का काम नहीं करना है, और office घर के time पे मुझे work का काम नहीं करना है. That is something that you have to balance out. But the underlying thing is always that are you enjoying it or is it becoming overwhelming? Because if you think about your life also, forget about your work. Your life can become overwhelming. You might have problems going at home with your family, or you might have problems with your friends. You might have love interest problems, whatever. I mean, there are so many problems that just happen outside work. And there are things at work also which make you, feel the same way, which is like you're bitten off more than you can chew. You're trying to kind of scale hyper, nahi ho raha hai, and people are getting disgruntled. So at the end of the day, if you look at it, what we do not want to be is in a situation where we just seem to be out of breath. We are not liking it. And more than not liking it, it's also that there is a lot of external signals that you're receiving, which make you feel that, everything is screwed up. As in, think about it this way. Like if I talk about work life on the work side, you would have people saying that, यहाँ पे culture ठीक नहीं है, यहाँ बहुत घुसना पड़ता है लोगों, and clarity नहीं है, vision नहीं है. Initially you are in denial कि यार ये सब ना सबको समझ नहीं आता है and all that. Fair enough. I mean, कुछ को नहीं समझ आता है, but when you should have a sensible threshold कि यार इससे ज्यादा अगर इतना ज्यादा आ रहा है, then there is something wrong. If you think about on your work side, home side also, you've got your mom and dad, you've got your wife, or you've got your girlfriend, and you've got your boyfriends, and you will see that they are going to give you feedback, right? It appears you don't have time for me, and it's irritating to hear that, right? So it's a question of how you're actually making time for everything, and it's a cultural aspect. So when you say that, okay, how do you kind of, whether you take it slow or you take it fast, how do you actually uh, do it, or rather how do you decide to pace? It's the real question is how you want to pace it. Okay. So I'll give you a good analogy on this. Like a lot of you might be trying to do running or cycling, right? I mean, some sort of endurance sport. जब तुमने पहली बार किया था ना, तुम मतलब मुश्किल से 100 मीटर भी नहीं भाग पाओ. So there's no point of view at that point being stupid enough to say that नहीं मैं तो 10 किलोमीटर चुस्त भागूंगा, या मैं मैराथन भागूंगा, हाफ मैराथन भागूंगा. And I'll do it also not just in some time. I'll do it in at like 6 minutes to the mile or kilometer. That's stupid. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, you are not equipped. Your body is going to scream. So if you take your body as a reflection of the culture, then your body is screaming that don't do this, but you're like, nahi, nahi, mujhe to karna hai. And then it goes sideways because either you'll break a leg or you'll have a tendon tear, and then you don't achieve anything. So the question is, how much do you hear to your body, and then you decide कि like चलो पहले 2 महीने ना मैं आराम से थोड़ा मैं आपको स्केल अप करता हूँ. उसके बाद जब मैं एक certain level of fitness पे आता हूँ, I will do the higher sprint or something like that. Startup story is also very similar. When we were small, I never when as so the company's body is basically the people. If the people are not enjoying it, firstly, how do you listen to them? Okay. I have seen startups mostly not investing in that, and it's all right. But I'll tell you one of the simplest things. Because people think like every investment is a, can you invest in it? But we would have like with Slack, we used to have anonymous polls. Free में tool मिलते हैं. We have an anonymous channel where people can just go and write about anything. They'll never be traceable. And right now we invest in a software which runs an anonymous poll or a NPS every 2-3 months. Why I
Nice.
do this is people need to be comfortable to say that I have a problem working here, and they should not be identifiable because anonymity gives them that level of comfort in sharing their mindset. So to answer your question, it's about pacing it, and at different stages of your career or startup, you are able to pace it differently. different individuals come with different sort of capability to scale it. If you look at, say, take Razorpay's example, it's like just hyper scaled into something. Take ChargeBee's example, hyper scale, Udan hyper scale. But if you look at the fresh walls, they took their own sweet time to kind of come to the seventh, eighth year and then do it. There is Shopify. After 16 years, it became like a massive company. You look at multiple companies in the US, they took their time. It's about, so the real thing is how you want to scale it. If I do my second startup, if it ever happens, it's about like maybe I will be able to scale it better because I figured out a lot of these problems early on. But before you solve the problems which your body is complaining about, if you try to overstretch yourself, then you're up for a lot of pain. That's how I look at scaling. अभी जैसे हम सीरीज B कर चुके हैं, so the scaling expectations are different than what we had from series A, but
Right.
we are also better prepared. You know, we are hiring the sort of people because we know what we can do ourselves and what we need help with. So we are hiring for that sort of people who bring in that speed and execution. But we wouldn't have done it before because we were very uncomfortable, sort of hiring people very senior. So क्योंकि अंदर ही इतने लोग हैं, हम काफी काम कर लेते थे. So that scaling part is there. Engineering team at Urban Piper is still 31. 6 महीने पहले तक it was a badge of honor. अब फटी पड़ी है because there's so much of work. But the good side of that is these 31 folks or 25, out of which 8 people are from Masai, by the way, they are doing some really big stuff because, if I had 100 people in engineering, the 101st guy would be probably writing tests for 6 months, you know. And instead of that, I have folks from Masai who are probably right now. So, like for people who we hired, like, I remember about a year and a half back, they actually own a complete module by themselves. Either backend ka pura ek module own kar rahe hain. So, these are the things that you get. But at the same time, now it's also understandable that we have so much of work. Like I said, we want to make this ecosystem, so we need more people. So it's a good time to scale. And when it comes to the whole part of failure, I think a lot of folks take negativity in failure and all that. I know a lot of folks have told about like how you should take it as a learning and all that, which is absolutely right and fine. But at the same time, I think if you if you look at not every outcome, if you think about failure, फिर तो तुम्हारे को जीने की भी कोई जरूरत नहीं, like every outcome, every point of your existence has a doomsday scenario. So while you are, so one thing that I think at Urban Piper we have matured quite a bit is when we plan for something now, we force ourselves to think what are the key risks which will make it a failure. And then we force ourselves to think what will be the contingencies. Like, when Pratik was talking also about like, you guys have plans to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you guys do it internally, but it has to be like, what are those things that happen? And it can be as simple as he, यार नहीं मिले इतने बच्चे, or right, rather because it has to be something tangible. We were looking to hire someone who is a outreach program manager or VP of outreach. Couldn't hire him, नहीं हुआ, ठीक है, फंड्स कम पड़ते हैं. बट कंटिजेंसीज होना चाहिए. कंटिजेंसीज क्या होना चाहिए? अगर नहीं हुआ, what will be the next target that we think about? Because a lot of planning which is done, and we used to do it and we were victims of that ourselves. हम प्लान तो कर देंगे कि लाइक ये है ना, आज हम 10 मिलियन कर रहे हैं, अब 20 मिलियन तक पहुंच जाएंगे. अब जब 20 मिलियन नहीं पहुंचेंगे ना, it becomes a habit. So that's also a problem. Because if you ignore all these failures also, you become like complacent. So we force ourselves now to call out like, why will we not reach this target and what are the contingencies? So in that sense now, you don't have a doomsday situation of failure, because think about it, even when we were kids, right, when we were doing IIT, right, we were appearing for IITs or IIMs and all that, and if only our parents were like, "Ki, beta, there are so many friends I have. In fact, my parents were also like, beta, कोई नहीं, IIT नहीं हुआ ना, तो DC है, NIT है, it's important to get an education. Don't lose the goal that it's the education that matters, not the degree so much. हाँ, but इतने भी तुम लावारिस ना बन जाओ कि तुम कहीं पे भी नहीं जा पाओ. That's like, keep a self-respect, but always know that it is a possibility you will not crack IT or IIM, and there is life outside of that. So this is more important than, I think, planning and thinking about failures, is to confront failures at the point of starting and saying अगर नहीं पहुंचूंगा तो क्या करूंगा, because then it becomes not a question of failure, it's a question of a particular outcome, and you've thought about the outcome before.
Right. Interesting perspectives. I think one of the things, if I explore it thematically, what you're saying is, more intrinsically aligned rather than external factors, because that's something which came in your previous piece as well. So if you're not necessarily comparing yourself to other people, different people have different journeys. Being able to listen to yourself, that you need to be in tune with your body, you need to be in tune with the organization, if that is the body. And people tend to miss that. It's become so much more important sometimes for me as an individual to say, oh, my peers are making so much money, or they are doing so much, and or they are holidaying, simplifying it in today's
Yeah, yeah.
they are holidaying in X, Y, and Z places, and I'm not able to go there, and becomes an unnecessary burden which we start carrying. Nobody's put it on us, and I think organizations tend to do similar things as well.
And I also call out one other thing, right? So there was one thing that I always used to say, like, people would ask, yeah, देखो problem नहीं है कि मेरी salary ज़्यादा नहीं है and all that. So my thing was, because in my mind, मेरे लिए वो problem नहीं है. It's as simple as that. Like you said, right? If I see, say, Ankur, having a great time in Antarctica, some place I really want to go. But if that actually causes me to feel bad, I should do something about it. It's as simple as that. But if it is something that, अंकुर ने एक Mercedes ले ली, ठीक है? It should be like, do you have a use for Mercedes? I mean, is it just because, and in that moment you should think only one thing, which is that, ठीक है, I mean, instead of being impulsive, give it some time to think. If you have a Mercedes, what do you want to do? गाड़ी तो उतना ही चलाएगा ना जितना तेरे को चलाना है. शहरों के रास्ते ठीक नहीं हो जाएंगे मर्सिडीज से, पॉटहोल्स होंगे और ट्रैफिक होगा. So the whole thing is that if you can work that thing out, how do you resist that impulse? I think it also helps. I have been in many moments where वही आता है थोड़ा impulsive हमेशा गंदा होता है. I mean, and I can't say that you can. I mean, I don't know what the trick for that is, but you have to figure out your own way to resist impulse. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right. It's been a very interesting conversation, Anirban. We have a few questions from the audience. We'll have Shashank joining us. He'll pick up a few questions, but in the meantime, some of them have reached directly to me as well. And one question is, how important is data for your business? And then, which is followed up with, in your opinion, what is the scope for data analytics in general in a country like India? So that's a two-part question which I've got.
So in our business, data is very important, as in like very important. ऐसे बताना चाहिए कि like it's important to store it right now. I mean, we are just doing a good job of storing it. ठीक है. The use of and I mean there's two parts to data as I look at it, like storing it effectively, and then building it to a degree which actually makes people think about taking actions. So the world is actually पहले पहले क्या होता था कि like they'll show trends and all that. So there's descriptive analytics, right? कि like कितने बच्चे आए और कितने order आए and all those kind of things. But after a while कुछ नहीं होने वाला. कितने बच्चे आए, ऊपर जा रहा है, नीचे जा रहा है, फ्लैट लाइन हो गया. आई मीन मैक्सिमम बहुत ज्यादा नीचे जा रहा है, then you will be concerned, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, that's descriptive analytics. It has very short benefit, but really what analytics actually leads to is like, okay, what actions can you take given that certain data exists, right? And I think it has a big function on, because it's a big investment, by the way, to
Mhm.
make actionable data, to make actions on top of data. ये जो I don't know about AI a lot. I think AI is used in a very loose manner, but I'm better call it machine learning, which is actually a proven better term. Which is you learn the data to say that, okay, if this is happening, it's more like predicting, forecasting, all those kind of things, and then associating actions with them. Right. The perfect example is like what Uber and Ola do with their surge pricing. Right. They have the data, they basically do a predictive analytics, and basically अगले घंटे में आपको 10% या 15% ज़्यादा फेयर देना पड़ेगा. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now, building that kind of infrastructure is a lot of investment and effort. So you have to extract that value from what? the audience is going to do. And I think for a lot of the things, you have to say that the paying capacity of the audience or the education of the audience is also important. So
Right.
काफियों को ये नहीं पता है कि like they could do these things. I mean हमारे पास भी छोटे छोटे ऐसे होते हैं. We have done some small changes in our system which allow data to kind of take actions,
Mhm.
and people were scared of it. So then we had to kind of इतना educate करना पड़ा कि हमने कहा कि यार पहले स्विगी को समझाओ, फिर अमेजोन को समझाओ, फिर जोमेटो को, और फिर मर्चेंट्स को समझाओ कि नहीं हम कुछ गड़बड़ नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम तुम्हारा ऑपरेशन सिंप्लीफाई कर रहे हैं. So I would say that data right now, the biggest challenge is how to store it effectively. I don't, and it's a very interesting problem because you have so many systems which are now with the whole services based approach where you have different systems, right? You have different silos of data. How do you collect it into one meaningful way? We still haven't cracked it completely. We have cracked it partially, but with Series B, one of the focus is to crack data storage, pipelining, all that kind of part. And then there is also another part of visualizing, very effectively, which is predictive analytics. So we want to take the first step towards predictive analytics right now. I think if people are interested in data, uh, don't spend too much time on what I would say, like what you have, on the basics. Basics are important, okay, by the way, like SQL, कैसे चलाना है and all that kind of stuff. But quickly start to figure out what is the effective storage. A lot of people I still talk to, they don't understand what is a columnar database and why is it better than, say, a relational database. It's a very simple question. And that just shows the gap, right? People are talking about data, but not talking about the fundamentals. अभी पहले store करो. So how to store it, how to retrieve it. So this is the first part. Second part is then, okay, how do you build models on top of it? Where machine learning comes in. I want to predict, like in ordering, right? One of the best things that merchants love is that if I can tell them, ki, like, IPL ka season aa raha hai, so given 2 years of history, how will your biryani sell at the Kormangla outlet versus a Marthalia outlet? So they are like, हाँ बताओ बताओ. They are very much like, we anonymize, say, the data across merchants, and we say like कि तेरे मोहल्ले में शाही पनीर बिक रहा है और तू यहाँ बैठ के कोफ्ता बनाया पड़ा है. So make shahi paneer. These are the kind of, so
Right.
data which can be easy to educate your audience with is important. So primarily, I would say that stressing on. I still see. I'll be very honest. I don't think people understand storing data well.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
yeah, that's the reason for that question, because data analytics is becoming another hot career choice right now. And in fact, data scientist is that buzzword of 2021, 22 probably in this space. So interesting to know. Also makes me crave shahi paneer a little bit.
But the data analyst, there is a little bit of a problem that I see. The whole thing is, if you start off with data analyst, right,
Mhm.
your ability to analyze data, while you might be good, is highly subjected to the domain you are in. It could be that, say, at UrbanPiper, there is two parts to it. A, the company itself. So how well do you understand how running a company is, right? I mean, basically, say you want to kind of say that, okay, what is my churn rate? What is my churn recovery rate? What is my all these things? So these are all elevated business concepts. So picking those up is very important. So you will have a gap there, and then knowing what the domain is. Like we are food industry, someone is in payment industry, someone is in e-commerce. Very different metrics, very different things. So I would say like data analytics के साथ साथ, if there is a little, at least the thing is तुम data किस लिए analyze करना चाहते हो?
Right.
At Masai, like for example, I know you guys have started this and it's a very good thing, but you should also stress, say, you can't go around solving for different domains. Like, you can't just say that, okay, there is a 6 month, 2 week course on e-commerce, 2 week course on this thing. Forget that. This doesn't work. But what works is these analysts will first land into a company where they have to figure out how companies run. They have to figure out the basic concepts, like I would say, like the basic concepts of accounting, basic concepts of revenue generation, sales closure cycle क्या होता है, sales go live cycle क्या होता है, onboarding cycle क्या होता है, churning क्या होता है. these concepts, if they are familiar with, they will not feel themselves very alien. And I think this is one part of data analytics which I generally find, because I come across these, हम अभी hire कर रहे हैं काफी, and for us it is kind of hard, right? कि we ask these questions and they're like कि यार ये क्या पूछ रहे हैं अभी, मुझे नहीं पता ये क्या है. So those are the things.
Right. So essentially, you're also contextualizing it towards moving from data analyst to business analyst, especially when we talk about maybe the early stages of a company doing that and in smaller teams.
Right.
Probably in larger teams, maybe that context can be passed on from a different team or with a little more ease.
Right. I mean, if you want to just create raw talent of data analysts, I mean, you have to shoot for a very high bar of like, okay, extremely good with SQL, pivot tables, and all those kind of things in spreadsheets and all that. But these are basic skills. Actually, when I actually work with data analysts right now, I think like, of course, I struggle with that part also. किसी को SQL नहीं आता है, जिसको समझ नहीं आता कि ये क्या है, relationship of data कैसे है, schematics of data क्या है. But believe me, it takes only about a month or two to kind of get their heads straight if they are decent. उसके बाद क्या प्रॉब्लम होती है, they just don't able to apply their skills to the business or to the domain. So maybe knowing what is the, like, see, one of the best things about schools like Masai is that you guys are preparing people for the industry. The gap between undergraduate and, or rather, structured learning and real world practical example, there's a big gap which you guys are trying to bridge. And in that, if you have a good idea about like which industries are actually investing a lot of in data analytics and all that, contextualizing that their learning around those domains will actually at least prepare them mentally कि ये सब are valid things to ask.
Right, right. Thanks for that input. Shashank, let's take up a few questions. I think we are almost at the time limit. It's already 1:30.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of quick questions.
So, I mean, out of all the intellectual conversations that have happened, Anirban, I'm here to present and ask some fun questions. So, I was first wanting to ask if you're ready for some fun questions.
I mean, that's a loaded question right there.
It is, it is. Um,
Yeah, I'm
but
ready.
before I go into the rapid fire, one thing that I wanted to ask, it's a personal question, is you mentioned about your bias or early bias of not wanting to build a product for restaurants which cater to their Swiggy and Zomato orders. And I think biases are a recurring event or phenomena, especially when you're building a company. So, what are the measures you, on a personal level, take to fight off these cognitive biases?
Very good question. I mean, my first thing is to have good people around who are individually motivated to kind of pursue different aspects. So see, then say someone's gonna be in marketing, someone's gonna be in strategy, someone's gonna be in finance. कोई revenue देखेगा, कोई product देखेगा, because these are all biases that come from your trade, right? My bias came out of this product philosophy कि अगर तुम्हें अपना business बढ़ाना है तो तुम क्यों commission वाला business बढ़ाना चाहते हो? But
Sure.
the sales guy had a perspective that he हर पांच या every five merchants I hit, we want this feature. So there's a market demand for it. Why don't you want to cater to it? So the whole thing to biases is, the first thing is that you need to define have some good people around you who think parallelly but not like a hive mentality. The second good thing is to kind of be aware that you have biases. ये सबसे बड़ा तो वो भी है कि like a lot of folks don't want to be aware that they have biases. So at least have someone, or be it yourself, that agree that I have biases. Agree the fact that okay, and be comfortable that you can change. Again, it goes back to the same thing that I was talking to Ankur about accepting, asking for help, right? क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि हम छोटे हो जाएंगे किसी की नजर में. So the biases thing is also similar. कि like एक point के बाद ना, it is not about the poor aspect. It's about, oh, if I agree to this, then I'll fall. My ego will take a dent and all that. So I think the first part would be ki, like, it's okay to have biases. It's also equally okay to just switch. Okay, koi kuch nahi hai. And when you are switching, give credit. So suppose I had you and I get into a debate, like, simple debate, like, maybe the whiteboard behind you, you made it out of glass. I will be like, nahi, nahi, wo school wala karta hai, and all that, whatever. get into a heated debate, and then I am able to convince that let's use a green then when you are accepting it, it's good to kind of say like, what, Anirban's input helped me get this clarity and do it. Because then there is no fear. You're not being looked down upon. You're just saying that, okay, I had a perspective. I thought that his perspective was more valid, and I have switched, and he deserves credit for it. That's it. So
Right.
I think that's the one.
All right. Thanks so much for answering. Going back to the fun questions, I'll start off one by one. What's your comfort food?
Comfort food. Yeah, I don't eat. I don't have any particular thing that comes to my mind right now. But if I want to have a craving, then I'll go for Maggie.
Okay. 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 I think data says comfort food for a lot of Indians is biryani.
No, 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 no.
No? What is it then?
मेरे को बहुत नींद आती है बिरयानी से. It's only at night time. So
Okay.
I am a little bit of the, what you would say, like, uh, I don't sleep during the day, so, and I have to do cycling. So carbs का भी थोड़ा issue है. So, like, that's my little contribution to health. I try to keep the rice down. So yeah,
Okay.
biryani is not bad.
Okay. Okay. One thing that you own that you really want to throw away.
Uh, this thing, this is a jewel.
Right. Okay. Uh, one animal that you're scared of.
I'm not particularly scared of anything. I mean, in animal justice.
Okay.
आई माइट से क्रोकोडाइल. वो बड़े वाले देखे नहीं है, छोटे वाले देखे. इंडिया में घड़ियाल होते हैं, थोड़े मैलनरिश टाइप होते हैं, बट वो जो नैट में होते हैं, दिस their picture is fairly intimidating. So I would say
Okay.
crocs probably.
Okay. Okay. Last person you asked to take a selfie with.
My mom, dad, they
Okay.
asked me
Great.
to take a selfie.
Amrish, in the last session, he talked about taking a selfie with his daughter. So I like the fact that family is coming around with this question as an answer.
It's basically
Uh,
probably people who are not comfortable taking selfies, take it with their
yeah,
families. It's like the simplest way of admitting कि हम भी करते हैं.
right, right. If you watch movies, what is the last movie that you watched?
The last movie that I watched, actually, I'm much more into series right now. So I've been watching this one called Better Call Saul.
Oh, yes, brilliant.
So yeah,
Yeah, skills versus degrees.
still any day.
Yeah, you mentioned about exercise being worth it. So yeah, that's taken care of. If you could listen to one song for the rest of your life, would you have a song for that moment?
I don't think you can listen to a song for your entire life. I mean,
Yeah.
I do listen to songs on repeat a lot, but it depends on the mood. So um, I, I would say that there's this song by Nirvana called "You Know You're Right." There's a song by Pearl Jam. It's called Jeremy. Then there's a lot of symphony stuff. So depend करता है कि जब मैं काम कर रहा हूँ, then I want symphony to be in the repeat. Uh, when I want to do something really fast, or I'm cycling or something, I want to have like some grunge metal song. So yeah, I don't have one
Okay.
song.
Same depends on the mood. One last question. If you could meet your 18-year-old version, the young Anirban, what is the one thing that you'd want to say to him?
I would have I would have probably told him to kind of invest more in learning faster. Like, and that's what I even look now. Like, things like picking up, basically don't rely on your job or your immediate surroundings to teach you things. Um, find your source of truth around some things that interest you outside that. Like, I see a lot of kids who do side projects or they learn from other areas. That would be one thing that I would say, because I was fairly, I was very much in the moment, uh, loved being there, or that, not that I would actually say that's also bad, but it would have helped to probably figure a lot of things out earlier. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And this
Deliberate
too also,
learning, if you
this also comes because अभी पता है एक problem क्या है? So like I said, I'm 39,
hmm.
and there are these engineering managers, okay, engineering managers who are 28. तो मैं सोचता हूँ कि तुमने क्या ही किया था, मतलब ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है तुम्हारी जिंदगी में जो मेरे साथ भी हुआ था. Because I became something of their caliber, or had that level of impact in a company at 35, 36. So where did those 8 years go? And when I kind of try to, when I talk to them, then I realize they are very curious. Like, they build something. Someone was very much into Arduino boards, or someone was very much. So one of the things which I will say, which may not work for me in 18 years, is जब मैं 18 साल का था ना, इंटरनेट की वाट लगी हुई थी, तभी वो चू चू चा चा करके तो मॉडर्न चलता था, ठीक है, और इंटरनेट के अच्छे खासे पैसे देने पड़ते थे. सो मे बी इवन इफ आई गिव दैट एडवाइस, द 18 year old will say like, dude, ऐसा है, इंटरनेट यहाँ पे अभी भी नहीं चलता है, ठीक है. So I think that is the problem.
Yeah, fun. Thankfully, it is a hypothetical question, so an answer will be hypothetical in all senses. But Anirban, thanks so much for coming in and taking out the time to talk to us. I loved
Yeah,
your session, and the fact that the main product that you have of Swiggy and Zomato managing all your orders was something that you did not want to build amazed me, blew out my mind completely. So I think that is one takeaway from the session. But thanks again for coming in and talking to us.
thanks guys, thanks for having me. Really,
Thanks,
really
Anirban.
appreciate
Bye bye.
it. Yeah.